I believe we all have Blender open up. Um, Quickly, I want to see everybody's exercise on the texturing. I believe nobody had issues with that. So I understand if you know what I mean before we proceed.
Sorry, that's what I said. Though I've not finished my texturing exercise. Let me know that I've not started.
I can barely hear you. You were saying what, Mubarak?
I said I've not finished texturing exercise. Let me know that I've never started texturing exercise. I just wanted to finish the revolver, and then I submitted that one.
Okay, okay.
For tonight, I'll texture and I'll send to
Okay.
you.
Is it that you've not finished it, or you don't understand, or you don't
No, no, no.
have
It's
it?
not that I don't understand. It's
Okay, you've not finished
work
it.
and fasting and everything.
All right, no problem with that. If you understand, but you've not been able to finish it, right?
Yes, yes.
All right, okay, that's okay. So, because I think the deadline for that one is on Sunday, so we still have today and possibly tomorrow. Okay.
All right, thank you.
Okay. So yeah. Has anyone done the texturing assignments that has completed it so we can see if there any correction
I
on there?
tested the revolver, although I just added colors to it. Only if that counts.
Sorry.
I
Thank you.
textured the revolver chamber
Okay.
as opposed to the
For the
bottom.
sorry for the revolver exercise. Well, adding
Yeah,
texture
the
is
revolver is the thing that I added texture to it, but I've not done the one for the bottom.
okay. Yeah, like I said, the revolver exercise. Well, I didn't. It was the exercise was before we did the
Yeah,
texture.
before the
So
texture
I didn't
part.
expect it to add texture. But if you add texture, it's not a bad thing. It's not as if I'm going to mark it down. But I didn't expect it to have textures. The texture specifically was for the water bottle exercise. Don't worry. From now on, of course, from since we've done the texturing, from now on, all your exercises will be required to add textures. Okay. Welcome, Steph. Welcome back, Stefan. So all your exercises from now on, you'll be required to add textures and materials. Okay. So um, today we'll be talking about, like I said, we're talking about lighting, we're talking about texture painting, and no, sorry, we'll be talking about texture painting, we're talking about baking. But texture painting will be the last thing we'll talk about. Hopefully, I hope if we don't have enough time to talk about texture painting, then we might go into the next class tomorrow. But these are the few things we're talking about today. So at this point, you should have some flexibility to model virtually anything in Blender. Okay, so it might just take a little time. It's all about you get better with practice. Okay, but modeling anything in Blender should not be a hitch for you again. So that's you really there's not really much um too much that we need to emphasize on modeling again unless we were going to some advanced techniques which are not entirely needed per se for now. So majorly we're talking about texturing and materials because that's like the major where you understand that that's like the biggest issue that usually happens when you're trying to cross compatible when you try to work with sorry, Sharon, you say something. Okay, so when you're trying to work from import or export your models from one platform to another platform, especially you'll be doing that a lot, of course, if you are working XR. So that's usually where you have issues. Maybe you export the material from Blender to maybe Unity. You find out that all the textures are gone or disappeared or something like that. So you start working on how you can avoid that. Although there's a class dedicated entirely for exporting and importing. So all right. So without much ado, let's go in. So firstly, lighting. All right. No, before that, let me just talk about the briefly mention the subject because we didn't finish the class. What I wanted to say. Um, I was talking about the shrink wrap modifier, right? So say you have a cylinder this cylinder, and you added a text. So let me turn on the screencast. So let's say we added a text. Yeah, this is text. So added a text. Bring it here. And the text, let's say, I don't know. Okay, so yeah, this is our text, right? I wanted to shrink wrap this text onto this onto this surface, right? So what we'll do is just line it up at first. Try to line it up. Let's see. What I did was I rotated it 90 degrees on the x-axis, right? To make it stand right, and then I'll rotate it 90 degrees also on the z-axis to sort of turn it to that direction, and then I bring it close. Just try to line it up a bit. Maybe we'll bring it out slightly. Okay, just have it like resting on the surface. All right. So what we're going to do now is we're going to use the remesh modifier, because if we were to shrink wrap this, the natural edges, and I told you that when a blender wants to deform anything, it uses the edges and the edges and the vertices and the just the geometry basically. That's what you use as edges to deform, to fold, or to shape anything. But the edges and the geometry. Let me convert this. If you want to convert this to a text object to a mesh object, you can just right click and you see the convert option here. So let's convert it to a mesh at first. Okay. So now it's a mesh object. That means if you type edit to go into edit mode, you have vertices, you have edges, you have things that you can actually manipulate and play around with. But the issue is, if you notice, the geometry is looking the edges are looking very weird. They look very diagonal and bad. And that's what this blender needs to actually bend it. So if you shrink wrap this object, it's not wrap around the object properly to start deforming. Let me show you what I mean. A shrink wrap is a modifier. So we go to modifier mode and you look for shrink wrap. Yeah, this is the shrink wrap modifier. Click on the shrink wrap modifier, and then you want to click the surface that you want to modify that you want to shrink wrap to. So you click the surface. Now notice that it's like the text is a bit warped. Okay. All right. So the reason is because the edges to deform are not actually very, they are not uniform in a way. So what we can do is we add a different modifier, and that's called the remesh modifier. And what remesh modifier does is it takes your object and it turns every face in the object into a four-sided face. Okay. So looking at this face now, like pick a random face. Let me go to face select mode. Pick any random face. Let's say this one. Okay. Consider this one is a three-sided face, and most of the objects here, most of the faces here are three-sided. Some are a lot more than three-sided faces. So, but the modeling technique that you want to adopt, generally, you want your object, any mesh you are modeling to have four sides. It's very important, because three-sided faces you will run into problems, and it's more cumbersome to work with. Okay, so you want to look for four-sided faces, and all these ones are three-sided and weight-sided faces. Call them n-gons or word polygons. Okay. So what remesh modifier does is it turns all the faces into four-sided faces, but you might need to go in a bit. You might not use it often, because it will break it down to very small geometries, and that might also be difficult to work with. So, but in this case, we can avoid using the remesh modifier. So if you want you use the remesh modifier, come to modifiers panel, click on different drop down for the modifier, and you look for the remesh modifier. Okay, here is the remesh modifier. So you can click on the remesh modifier. Okay. So by default, it seems that everything just disappeared. Let me hide this first. Okay. So this it's you need to start increasing the octree depth or um, the um, the voxel size here, so that it will start, because the way it will kind of break down everything and start reconstructing it from scratch again. So that's kind of how the remesh modifier works. Okay, so if you increase this, or you increase the smooth, or the blocks rather, sorry, the yeah this, you might, let me reduce this one. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so all right. So you could add the remesh modifier to break down everything. Now you just look for whichever option that works for you. There's the blocks, the smooth, the sharp. I don't know, whichever option that tries to bring out the desired result. Okay, so that's what you're trying to look for. However, if the what do you call it? Let me hide this first. Actually, if the object itself, if the wrapping is done fairly, fair enough to your taste, you might want to just leave it. Or I told you another option is you can actually try to bring out the um the text. The text, maybe just bring it out slightly, or just try to reposition it. It's a kind of fiddle, or kind of tweaking, a matter of tweaking basically. Just slightly. Um, I know, just let us leave it on the surface. So, okay. Or if you're using the remesh, let me activate it back. Now, sometimes the remesh doesn't work perfectly for your work, so that's why I usually just avoid it. So it doesn't always work perfectly. So if it doesn't work in this, like in this case, it's kind of breaking down the entire object rather than just it's breaking it down. So you might just want to not use it if it's not creating the desired effect. Okay. So I've closed the remesh modifier. So those are just some things that you might look for. It's kind of like a trial and error kind of thing. It's not always, it doesn't always work. But that's just, I just had to mention that because it's kind of part of some things, some tricks that you might use. Sometimes you try some things in Blender, even especially when you're exporting, you might try to export in a particular format. And I know this for certain because I've had issues like that before. You might want to export in a format, turns out it doesn't work, or maybe the platform you're working with for the XR doesn't import that format, or it's, I don't know. So you need to come back, do some manipulation, maybe bake. Sometimes you might need to bake, sometimes you might need to bake to export your textures and stuff like that. So I'm just putting it out there, okay? All right. So okay. So okay. So the reason why I'm mentioning this because in all your next project, I want you to be attaching your names, like the text, write the text of your name, and then attach it to your models, okay? To your models. I wanted you to do that. Um, that's one way. The other way, there are several ways you could have done. You could use the Boolean modifier. Remember, you have the Boolean modifier. I wanted to use one way or the other to have your name on your object, okay? So you can use the Boolean modifier to, let me hide this at first and give it some thickness. Let me go to edit mode and can extrude. So remember, it's a text object, so you can extrude this now, okay? So you can use the Boolean modifier to actually cut this object, or you add it to your, maybe bring it back, X, okay. Just, nah. All right, so you use the Boolean modifier to sort of engrave your name, okay, to your model, okay. So grab on the that's it, pull it down. Let's match it up slightly. Now I told you that there are three options in the Boolean modifier. Let me close this so I can explain better. There are three options in the Boolean modifier, right? I said there's one. The first option is to cut, like you're cutting out the the shape that you're using to chisel into the object into your main model. Yeah, the other option, let me add the Boolean modifier so you can see what I mean. The first one difference that will like make the it will cut out this object into this the cylinder object. So the second one is union, which will be like it will add the two objects together and give a general additional as in the final shape will be like the addition of the two objects. Okay, so to be as if this one has been embossed or extruded from this. Okay, and the third one is intersect, which would be like the intersect, like the two objects where they intersect, the volume of which they intersect, that's the volume that will remain in that. Let me remember, you're adding the Boolean modifier to this solid object, the cylinder, which is like the main object. Okay, when you add the Boolean modifier to that, then the cutter object will be the smaller object or the object that is the one cutting the main object. Okay, so you use your eyedropper to keep this text. Okay, so if you go to intersect, you see what I mean, that it's just looks for the common shape between two of them, the intersect, like the name implies, and union is what you want to do. Okay, so union will create like a third shape that encompasses the two things together. So I'll just apply this very quickly, and then remember that your cut object is still there, so you want to bring it out. Okay, so now your final shape is your final shape. So that's what I want in your subsequent exercises. You want to delete that again. So you want to engrave your name on your objects. Look for a flat surface so that you have something like this, or you might need to shrink wrap it on it. But look for a flat surface. Maybe in this case, you likely want to do it at the top, so to have a flat engraving. Okay. So that's just that. So now for today's exercise, lighting. Okay, so everyone still there? All right. So for today's exercise, lighting, right? Lighting. What's lighting? Like literally, like the name implies, lighting is just how to illuminate your scene. Okay, because if I'm to have this now and I'm to click render view, or let me actually render this out. Okay, it won't render because there's no camera. Let me add a camera. I'll explain why we need cameras to render in Blender. Okay. Don't worry about the things I'm doing with the camera now. It's not for this class. We'll talk about them properly next class. Okay, so if I were to, I don't know, to render now, render is just like a way of packaging your this thing to an image or a into an image format, basically. Even if as I render now, you notice that you can hardly see our scene. I hardly see all the things we've been building. Why? Because there's no light in the scene. And the reason why you can actually even see it barely this way is because even though there's no light, there's not enough light per se, the environment itself, the background, it has like a gray color. It's not completely black, it has like a gray color. And that gray color is the only thing that's kind of illuminating, as dark as gray is, it's still kind of illuminating the object. So that's why you can still even make out a bit of shape if you can. But generally, the scene will be very dark and cannot be illuminated. So if you have if you've ever been to a photography shop before, you know how they light up the scene. If you want to take a photograph like from a actual professional photographer, you know they add lights, several lights. So you can actually apply that knowledge to in Blender. Okay, so by default in Blender there are three types of lights. Sorry, there are four types of lights. Okay, and to add a light, you just press your Shift A, of course, to add, and then you look for light. Okay, now when it comes to light, I don't know, you might not have this light probe in your own option, and that's because I think I added a modifier, an add-on, like a plugin. So don't worry about that. It's basically the same thing. So let's talk about this. If you have a light, you will have a light. So when you click on the light, You have four options. Don't forget about this 3 point lighting. It will not be in your own because I added the plugin. Okay, so but you have these four: this point, sun, spot, and area. So these are the four basic type of lighting. They are the basic type of lighting. So the point light. Let's start with the point light or lamp, if you like, the point lamp. Okay, so if let me click on it to add it. It's actually adding. So here it is. Um, this is a point lamp, and like the name implies, it's basically like a point. It illuminates in a radial form all around in every direction. So if I'm to view this in in rendered, I thought rendered view is the view that will show you all the like the final view in the final view of how your scene is going to look like with respect to lighting, materials, and shading and everything. Okay, so material view will only show you the all the materials that are on it. It will not at respect relative to light. Okay, and solid view will not even show any material or any light. It will just show the basic object. Okay, and wireframe of course will show you in a wireframe view. Okay, so let's go back to rendered view. Now, if you look at the object very well, and if you can see it. So if you bring your lamp, you can see how the lamp is behaving like you are holding a torch. Okay, so I'm moving it around the object just to see how lamp interacts, how the light interacts. Okay, and this is happening in real time because yeah, it's actually happening in real time. But you can only see the reason why I see it in real time is because we are using EV render mode. We'll talk about render engines in another class. So this is how the point lamp works. Okay, so you can actually increase the intensity or the size of the point lamp or the color, anything. So all you have to do is you come to the properties of the point lamp right here, second to the last option. So you can change the color. This is the color of the point lamp. You can change the color to any color. It can be taken pink. You can see how the lights change in real time. Bring in whatever color suits your mind. Yeah, blue, looking like a party kind of light. Okay, so that's what point lamp does. Now you can actually change increase the intensity. So as of right now, it's not too bright. You can make it much brighter by increasing this. For those of us that had a bit of science background, you understand this W means watt. Okay, so as of right now, the power is 10 watts. Okay, so you can actually increase it to as much as possible. You can notice that I'm increasing this. The lamp is getting brighter. I reduce it. It's getting darker. Um, it's getting dimmer rather. You can increase the lamp. So if you want to see a preview of how it shows, you can actually click this preview down to show you like a preview of the luminescence basically, the brightness basically. Um, can increase it, decrease it. That's what this power is for. Okay. So I like this color. Let me just see. Yeah, let me use this color. All right, so that's all about the light. So you can go crazy with this, but of course to affect your scene. Okay. Sorry. All right, so there are still some options for this point lamp. Remember we're in point lamp, and these options is the diffuse can increase how much or decrease how well the light is diffused, just like the name implies. Specular, how shiny I don't know. It's the effect is actually subtle for specular. It's a little bit subtle unless you want like specific um, rays at some specific. So you want to be specific about how the lighting works. So radius now is like just have this as a rule of thumb. The bigger the radius of a point lamp, the more diffused the point lamp will be, and the dimmer the light will be. I don't know how to explain it. It's like if you are shining, is a very bright. Let's say the power of the light is like let's say 1,000, for example, 1,000 watts, for example, and you're shining it through a very tiny hole, as in through a tiny, as it's coming from a tiny portion. So it's like there's the concentration on that portion will make the light brighter in concentration. But once you increase the concentration, it's like the intensity is kind of diffused. It's kind of spread out through the wider area, and so the emission per unit square or per unit location volume or per unit area is going to be smaller. So if you increase the radius, the light is going to get dimmer and or it's going to get more diffused. Okay, means that it gets sort of dimmer, but it's more diffused. Like it covers a wider range in a very it's more uniform. All right, but if you reduce that, it's going to be more concentrated and it's going to be less diffuse. Notice that the light is not reaching this area as such. It's not reaching it so much when the radius is smaller. Okay, when the radius is smaller, but when the radius is big, the light will reach that area slightly as more, but at the point that is closest to the light, it's not very sharp. It's not very bright. So that's what I mean by the diffusion and the and how the radius affects the diffusion. Okay, so that's already all about point light. There's not much about it. So the other options is if you want the your light to cast shadows, it's just some basic editing. If you want it to cast shadows, you can tick or untick this by default. I don't know why you know what you like to cast shadows. It will look unrealistic if it doesn't cast shadows. Um, so don't even. I hardly ever untick this. Okay. So, but there are times where you might actually want that if you're creating an effect that's okay, there's a light but it's not casting shadow, all kind of thing. So you might not mind taking this, but it's all about what you're trying to do. Okay. Yeah, it's been a bit quiet. I don't know if are you guys following me?
Yeah.
Hello? All right, good. Okay, so let's continue. So that's all about point light. Now the other type of light, let me delete this. Okay. Another type of light is the sunlight or the sun lamp. Okay, sun lamp or sunlight. Let me bring this here. Now, the sun lamp is the way the sun lamp works is irrespective of its location in space. Okay, its location in the world, it will cast its light in a particular direction. Okay, now and how to know the direction that it's casting light is this is the light, this is the lamp, and look at the line. This line is the direction it's casting the light. Okay. So if no matter where I put this lamp in the scene, whether I put it under or under here, notice that the object it's as if the light is just coming from the top. Okay, look at we have the ray is coming from the top. The side is not illuminated. It's like the lamp is just coming from the top. Okay, so that's the thing about sun lamps. Regardless of where you put it or its position in the scene, the direction is all that matters. Okay, direction of how where the light. So if I rotate this, notice how the lighting is changing on the object. I don't know if you understand what I mean. What I press was R to rotate across. So if I rotate this, let me rotate it this way, and let me try to move the light around. Notice that it's not even changing how the light is appearing on this. So it doesn't matter the location, all matters is the direction. Okay, so that's another type of lighting that you might want to do. And the same rule applies. You can change the color. Can change the color to I don't know, because this is a sun lamp. That's why you likely want to use it in place of the sun. So you maybe likely want to use something orangey-ish, and then you can increase the strength. Okay, not the power this time, the strength, which is like it is the equivalent of the power, so you can increase it to I don't know maybe 10. The color, whichever way, as you increase it, it will get brighter. As you decrease it, it gets dimmer. Okay. All right, so that's really all about the light and the same options, shadows and custom properties. I won't talk about custom properties because it's you hardly ever use it unless I don't know. Okay, so the shadows, of course, you can click to have shadows. You can notice that as I clicked it, the shadows disappeared at the bottom half, like the it creates of the object. Not the shadow on the object, of course, but like the shadow that the object creates, the object that is illuminated creates. So if you dislike this, of course, it will look very weird. I don't know why you would want to do that. So it's all about your choices. Though. So that's all about the sun lamp. So let me delete that and add a new type of lamp. And please bear in mind, you can actually add the if you want to change this type of lamp, for example, so from a sun to a point lamp, you don't need to delete and add again. I'm just deleting that for reference. You don't need to delete and add a different type of lamp. You can actually come here in the same lamp sun option Notice this way you find this lamp option. You can change to click the different types of lamp you want, the four different types. Maybe the point one, point lamp. Notice that I click the point lamp, it has changed from a sun to a point. And and of course, a point is just like a the lamp that it will move really the light changes relative to the position. Okay, okay. But bear in mind, of course, because this is radial, the rotation will have no effect, of course. So it's all about the position. This in when we're talking about the point now. Okay, and then a sun lamp, of course, is the direction and irrespective of the position. Okay. So now the third type of lamp is the spot lamp. Okay, the spot like exactly like the name implies, a spot like a spotlight. All these kind of shows. I don't know, like the Grammys or something like that. When they have spotlights that are ready specifically on a particular location, maybe on the star that is performing or something. So that's exactly what this spotlight too does. Okay, so you can see exactly it will show you the angle, the rotation, and the angle and the rotation of the lamp itself. So you can bring it anywhere. This works with relative to the position and rotation. Okay, so you can, I don't know, have this move anywhere, rotate it about whichever axis you want, and then you can there are a few more options for this one. Notice that the lamp you can actually make it more sharp or more diffuse by changing the size and the blend. Okay, here. So it's not what size and blend does. Let me show you. So the size now is the angle, so you can actually make the spot lamp bigger, the angle bigger, or you can make it smaller to narrow down. It's kind of like a flashlight, exactly, like a flashlight. Okay, so you can make the angle smaller. Let me notice that what I'm doing. I'm just tweaking the angle and make it slightly bigger now. You can make the way the light appears to be more diffused or more sharp. Okay, so if you want to blend the lights, you can notice that it's kind of more diffused now, looking a bit more diffused towards the edges. As it as it kind of fades outward exactly. I think that's because it's good. You can make it sharp. Make it out because I know it's very sharp, or it's evenly illuminated. Okay, so that's really all about spotlight. There's not really big too much about it. Okay, so you can, and at the same time you can still adjust the radius. I told you the bigger the radius, the more diffuse the general light will be, and but the dimmer it will be because it's more diffused, so it will be dimmer. Okay, so that's all. If you want to show the cone of the light rays, you can actually take this to show the cone of the light rays, so I can have a better view of how the light is being affected, how the light is moving. Okay, at the general volume that light encompasses. All right. So that's all about the spotlights. Okay. So now the last one is the area lamp. You can say lamp or light. Okay. So like the name implies, area. So it's all about for this type of lighting. It's all about the area. Okay. Notice we have like a square now, and the general rule of thumb, the bigger the surface area that is emitting the light, so far as long as the power or the intensities remain constant or remain the same, the bigger the surface area that is emitting the light, the more diffuse the light will be, or the dimmer it will be. Dimmer the intensity. Okay, the dimmer the intensity is because it's kind of like the intensity is kind of distributed evenly across the cross section of the surface area of the emitting volume or the emitting surface basically. So that's it. So exactly this area lamp, you can just place it in whichever way. What I did was I cleared the rotation because I rotated it slightly. So I cleared the rotation. So if I notice that if I make this spotlight bigger now, tap it S to make it to scale it bigger, the lighting will be kind of more diffused, more diffused. Notice that the intensity is kind of fading out. Okay, let me refresh that. But if I make the area lamp bigger, the intensity at the center is fading out. It's kind of like getting more diffused, and the lamp is kind of getting dimmer. Okay, So that's the thing with that's all about area lamp. So you can notice that all the lamps, what they do is kind of very similar. They're just illuminating objects. Okay. So this is one way to eliminate your scene. Another way is to actually make the material, the object itself, like this object, you turn it into an emission object. So that's like adding an emission to the object. I think I spoke about that briefly in the last class when we are talking about the principal shader. Okay. So making emission, basically you are making the object to glow, kind of like a glowing object. So that's one custom way. And if you make any object glow, it will actually still illuminate your scene. Okay. So if you make an object glow, it will its glow will actually illuminate your scene too. So that's one way to do it. If you don't want to use this lamp, okay. So let me delete this lamp and add an emission object, emission material. Okay, and remember we'll add our materials to come to shading. Okay, I'll follow in place.
Yes.
Hello. All right, good. So we come to shading and add a new material. We click new, or you click it. You can click the new here, or you click it here. Okay, so it's the same thing. So click the new to add a new material, and we can just rename that material. I don't know. Let's say glue. Okay, glue. All right. Rename it to something that you would like. So now, if you come to emissions here. Okay, now by default the emission is black. Now this is you understand how I got here, how I got this principal shader, right? Hello. Okay, yes, good. So in the principal shader, I told that emissions is like you are creating a glowing material to your scene. So by default, the anything that is black, of course, is not glowing, so it has zero emission. So if you want to make the material glow, so just increase um, the emission color all the way up to make it maybe white. Then you can actually change the color too. So the emission can be any color whatsoever. All right. So you can make it pink or whatever. I don't know. So when you have the emission color, right? Notice how the material is changing. Now it might not look so as if it's actually emitting or doing anything because we're in material view. And I told you that rendered view is the view that shows how light actually interacts. So let me create a different object so I can see how one light will create with the other lights, or a light will affect another light. So I'm just going to render view. Okay. Um, Now, don't worry about the render engine I'm changing. Okay, good. Um, so you can see that this cylinder that we made red now is kind of casting a red light onto the cube that is just beside it. Okay, so that's another way you can add light into your scene, and just the same way like you can do with lamps, you can actually increase the strength too. Okay, with the emission strength, you can make this, I don't know, maybe let's say 10. I noticed that once you made it 10, it became brighter. Don't worry about how this is kind of pixelating before it rises up. That's because you're in rendered view, and Blender is kind of trying to calculate at every sample step how as in, it's trying to calculate the saturation and everything, the reflection and everything of the light. Okay, so that's really all about emission. So you can do that to any object, any object basically, any object that you have materials on, so you can do that. And I think last class I told us how we can add materials to different parts of them. So say for example, I want only let me go back into solid view. I want only this text, okay, this Abdul text that I wrote here. I want only this text to be the one reflecting, to the one emission. Every other thing should be a different material. So what you do, like I said in the last class, you add the material, the two materials that you want to use. So let's say the cylinder will be um I don't know, let's say metal. Let's have the cylinder to metal, and the glue will be the Abdul text. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll go into edit view, okay, and then we'll select the cylinder. We'll select all the faces of the cylinder that want the glue to be assigned to the metal part, all the parts that you want metal. You assign everything under that metal part. So first of all, you select the faces, okay, So what I did was I pressed C to bring up circle selection, and then I just start clicking on the faces to select the faces, and these are all the faces that will have the metal material. Okay, metallic material. So I'm just selecting all that. I'm going to assign that to the metallic material. I told you that when you add the material to the object, the first material that you add, by default, everything in that object will be added, will be under that material. So what I did was I selected all the faces that I want to make the metal, and I click this assign. It's not as nothing happened, but of course that's done. So when you come out, when I click assign and come out, every other thing apart from the one that I've assigned will be this glue material. So there's no need to do that. So if you come into what they call it, into the material view, you see that it's kind of different now. So because this is a metal, of course, let's make it a metal. Remember, it's not a metal, it's just a default texture. So we have to tweak it to turn it to a metal. And what you do is you take the metallic property and you take it all the way up. Okay, notice that it's looking more like a metal now, and you can reduce the roughness to make it more shiny. Okay, you reduce the roughness to bring more shininess, and you increase the roughness to decrease the shininess. Okay, so now this how we have created our base metal, and then the text is the one emitting. Okay, so please pay attention to this, because I'll to test your knowledge in all these aspects. I'll be making some specific instructions for your assignment. Maybe after, I can say, for example, maybe if we're modeling a jet engine, for example, I'll say that you should add your text up, add your name as a text to label the jet engine, just like as I added here. You add the name as a text. Then you now make your name to be a specific material, while your jet engine is a different material. Okay. So just please have that in mind. I can test your knowledge in that regard for your subsequent assignments. Okay, so yeah, so that's really all about emissions, lighting. There's really much big data. It's just about looking at your scene. How do you, is this will your scene be well illuminated? See, if I go to rendered view now, my scene is still too dark for my liking. So what I can do is I can add in a light, let's say maybe a point lamp, and of course the point lamp will be in the center, of course, but it's not showing, so I can bring it up slightly. And the point lamp is not bright enough. So what do? I increase the power of the point lamp. Let me see. Let me make this 100. Okay, 100 watts. Okay, so it's bright, but it's at the same time it's too direct for my liking. So what do? I increase the radius to diffuse the light and make it somewhat cover a wider area. Okay, so let me see, it's bigger. But notice that the bigger the radius, the darker the dimmer the light, basically. So what do? I increase the light even further. Let me see, 1000 for example. Okay, good. So I think it's bright enough now. So let me just grab this one like this. And of course, the same way you duplicate things, you can actually duplicate. Let me go back into 3D view. That's right. Two computers. Okay. Let me come into render. Okay. So the same way you duplicate objects, that you press Shift D. Maybe if I want to duplicate this cube now, press Shift D, duplicate the cube. That's the same way you can duplicate your lamp objects too. So they have a lamp here. Okay, and I want this light is too one-sided for my liking, for example, and I want to make maybe two lamps, so that there will be one illuminating from one side, another illuminating from the other side. So let me put this here. What I'll do is I'll just press Shift E and on the X axis, for example. So what we'll now do is what it's now doing is we are having two lamps in our scene. Let me try and make this focus on it. And so we have two lamps in our scene now, and our scene is a lot more illuminated. Okay. All right. So our scene is a lot more illuminated. Now I'm going to do something for this class for this week basically. We will not have an assignment today. You don't have an assignment tomorrow. I don't have an assignment. You have an assignment on Sunday. Okay. And the reason for that is because the knowledge that we're going to do, what we're going to do in today's class, tomorrow's class, and next tomorrow's class is what you will be using to do your next assignment. Your next assignment is going to be most of it. Okay. So you lighten up your scene, you create a scene, a fully fledged scene, and you model more than one things to create to set up your scene. Okay, to just to get on, and you of course will be texturing and you, to test most of your knowledge. So please prepare your mind for that. Okay. So the rendering has kind of done the time now, so you can see how the lighting affects the scene. Okay. So now professionally or usually, or if you if I don't usually use the all these kind of point, sun, and area lamp unless I specifically want the light to be in a specific way. What I usually use is I use environment lighting or HDRI lighting. Okay, and what that stands for is high dynamic range imaging. Okay, so what that does is I told you that. Let me delete all this lighting. Let me delete all this lighting. For example, I told you that when I went into render view the first time, okay, notice that the objects are kind of, if even apart from this the red glow light, you can still kind of make out the edges or the nature of the object. And even though we don't have any lamp per se in our scene, and reason for that is not even because of this glow object, it's because the environment itself, the world is gray color, and because it's gray color, the gray is not entirely black per se. So the gray nature is kind of having is casting a bit of light on the object on our scene. Okay, so we can actually take this a step further by adding an image to our world. But and you might wonder, how will you add an image to the world? It's like, think of the world like think of the entire world like a ball. Okay, I'm talking of in Blender. Think of it like in a ball. Okay, so anything you have, anything you model is inside a ball, inside the ball. Okay, so if you're adding an image to the wall, you can add um, the wall itself. Like, imagine the ball is gray. In this scenario, what's happening right now, the wall is gray, and then the grayness of the entire wall is casting a shadow onto the object, which are like at the center of the wall. Okay, can you see what I'm trying to illustrate with my hand? Hello. All right. Okay. Good. So what I'm saying is it's kind of casting a shadow in 360 degrees onto the center of the object. That's why the object can still have some glow. And how you can actually change the color of the world by coming to this world panel. If you have nothing selected, just go look for something that looks like the globe. Okay, that's the world properties. So click on it and to bring up these options here. And what you do is you can just click on this color. You notice that the color is gray now. If you increase the color up to all the way, notice that the world is now having some form of, the world is now looking like white. Okay, because the color is white. Okay, so it's kind of illuminating the object, all right? So now the problem with this is that it's illuminating too diffuse and too plainly. I don't know if that makes sense.
I'm
Like,
meeting Mr. Bone.
if there's no really anything, you can just actually barely make out
Any of them.
the look of the object, but you can't really, everything is not looking, it's not, there's no interesting story to how the light is being illuminated. Notice that lighting, to master lighting, although this is a different course on its own, but to master lighting, you need to understand how to use shadows and how to use proper lighting intensity and diffusion. Okay, so I can talk about this for 3 months. Like, it's an entirely different course on its own, lighting. But to understand the basics to well enough to actually do what you need, it's not so difficult. So just understand that as it is now, the world is casting a general light, as in the same light, the same intensity of light at in a 360-degree global view, a global projection onto your center, your object. Okay, so the object will not look very appealing to the eye, because I don't know, light is coming evenly at every point, so there's no shadow, there's no really. Notice no matter how you turn it, there's no shadow per se, there's nothing. It's just very plain. So this is undesirable in rendering usually. So what we do is we use HDRI images or HDRI. Okay, so HDRI is high dynamic range images. So it's what that does is it will take an image, okay, of an environment, and it will project it into the interior, into the world basically. Okay, and those image will now be the image. The image will now be casting the light relative to the pixels, of course. It will be casting the light. I can talk. Let me just show you what I mean. Okay, so let's go into the shading view. Shading view. All right. So right now we are in material. We are in a we're in material node setup. Okay, but if you want to see the light, if you want to see the materials of the world. Okay, okay. There's actually another thing. If you want to see the nodes of the world, you can come here to click this drop down and then click on this world, the same world icon. Just click on the world, okay? So now to just show you the basic setup. So this is the world output and this is the world background. That's the background color, and by default, of course, it's white. Remember, we made it white, so it's casting even light. So what you can do is you can add a texture to this, and to do that, we add an image texture. We don't add. When we're adding texture an object, what we add is an image texture. But because the texture we're trying to add here is for a world, okay, we'll be adding an image texture. We'll be adding environment texture. So what you do is shift A to bring the admin in the node editor, and you can just search if you don't want to navigate. And just search environment texture, okay. Environment to bring up option. Okay, so good environment texture. Bring out the environment texture. Okay. So now you connect the color to color. So you connect the color to color. Let me go to render view so you see how this works in real time. Okay. So now you connected the color. So by default, of course, by default, if you add a texture shader, a texture to and if you've not added any image, to just use a default pink color. So don't worry about it's turning pink now. So what you do is you just look for a HDR. There are special images that are made for that, because if you add any image, of course, it will still work. But there are special images that are made in such that the images themselves, they are warped in such that when you project them into a world, an environment, into the world background, it's going to actually have a 3D look. Okay, I have some of those images. They are called HDRI images, and you can just go online and download some. But let me just I have a folder. Let me navigate to where it is. Show you an example. Okay. So let me just use a typical, for example, this video. Image. Alright, so just give it a second to just load up. Okay, so now it has loaded up. Let me go back into the layout so you can see properly. Okay, just give it a second. Okay, good. So what happened now is that you can notice as if the background, as if I'm in a new background, look at in a studio or an office kind of, or a kitchen basically kind of look, and the way that object is in the real world, okay, in the real world, everything is casting shadow, everything is casting light. You see, the reason why this room is bright is because the sun has actually lit up when keeping the windows on, is reflecting off the wall, and the wall is now reflecting the light back onto myself. That's what's making my this side of my body bright, and that's what making things bright, because light is off of things, okay. And the way light, of course, when light reflects off of a color, it's actually reflects part of that color too. Okay, so if you have like this now, my mouth part, for example, this is bluish. So if you shine a white light generally, so it reflects a blue. If your hand is close enough to it, you actually see like a blue reflection on your hand. Okay, so that's the Corello concept. That's how this works generally. So this world now, it will have like a more diffuse reflection, or a more realistic illumination of your scene. So that's why usually professionals generally use HDRI imaging for their scenes, or to illuminate their scenes. So these objects now will now be as if it's now be as if these objects are in this kind of environment in real life. If you let this sit, if you let that sit long enough to calculate it very well, it will now be as if these objects are actually in this kind of scene in real life. And that's why, and that's what you likely see in the real world. Notice that the shadows are properly, there are proper shadows here, and the proper lighting intensity at different points of the object. Okay, so that's what you want in your scene to have a more realistic, a more desired, visually appealing look. Okay, so you likely want to be using HDRI images a lot. So that is basic of environmental lighting. Okay, so there's not much, there's not too much about lighting. So please, I think if since I feel as though I'm talking to myself, so if you have a question, please ask me a question. Absalam, Stefan, and
No questions from my side.
okay, do you understand? You understand how I got the HDRI thing and all the other lightings, right?
Yes.
How about you, Stefan? Hello, Stefan.
Yes, I did.
Okay, Absalam, how about you?
Yeah, I understand it.
Okay, you understand everything about the environmental HDRI lighting, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right. So in another class, I won't talk too much about it in this class, but if you model, if you create a texture, you created the texture, you created the environment lighting on your object. If you export it, if you just take your object and come into here to export, and you export maybe to whichever format, maybe GLTF or wavefront OBJ, APX, I don't know. If you export it into another software, the materials will not follow it by default. It will not follow it. So you just when you import into the different software, you definitely have material issues. So how do you mitigate this, or how do you export objects with their materials and with the environment lighting and everything to it? I'll be showing us how to do that in future classes. But I don't want to talk about it in this class because we go into parts that that is not it's out of the scope of this class basically. But we'll talk about that later, of course. So that's just, but for now, this is the basics of how to light your scene. Notice that the light is more diffuse. This metal is not is showing more like a metal, like an actual metal, and of course, it will show reflections of the actual scene. So if this flower pot was in this direction now, and you have like a very shiny metal, this object is not shiny. This metal is not shining enough, though. But if you look at it close, at this now, it's kind of reflecting the flower pot and the flower pot and the wooden window frames. Okay, so that's the beauty of it. It will create a more realistic look to your scene, and that's why it's actually a very good practice to work with that. Okay, so that's really all about lighting. And the last thing I'll talk about today before we round up the class is texture painting. Okay, now remember in the last class, um, we spoke about unwrapping and spoke about how to add texture to your object. Okay, so if you wanted to, if a way of adding textures is kind of like if you wanted to have like more control over the way you add textures, maybe you have exactly just think of this like a 3D world. So maybe you have an object like this, and you wanted to be in full control of how you add texture. Maybe you want to paint a particular texture on it in a particular way, like if you have like you use your mouth to actually paint, or if you have um a light pen, you can actually do that on the tab if you're working with Blender on the tab. So you can actually use a light pen or use your mouse to paint. So that is called texture painting. Okay. So and the way to do that is of course is you come into the texture paint. You can come here into texture paint, or you navigate into texture paint into what is it? I believe it's the image editor, but generally just come to texture painting. Texture paint, it will bring up a layout for you, and of course the image editor will come up here to show you the unwrapping or the image, the texture that you
Yeah,
want
they
to
call
apply.
it is.
Okay, so let me come into,
I'm busy. I'm to leave you.
let me create a material for, let me go into shading, and then yeah, let me create a material for this cube, for example. We're going to texture paint this cube. Please go back into object view because by default it's in world view. Go back to object view, okay, to show the materials of the object rather. Okay, so now by default this cube has no material. Okay, so let's just add a new material. I don't know. Let's name this texture paint. Okay, texture paint by default this is the material on it. So, but if you want to be able to paint a different color on it, or you want to be able to slap different textures on it, okay? If you want to, if you want to add a label to this, rather than having to go into edit mode, maybe insert to have a particular face, then you now create another material for this face, for this particular face, and then you create another material, okay? A label, for example, and then you now assign that. And rather than having to do that, you can actually just paint the particular material image on that particular surface with only just one texture material, and that's how we use texture paint. Okay. Let me explain what I mean. Let me go to a solid view and remove this material. Okay. So what I will do is I will first unwrap the object. Remember how we unwrap? And just go into edit view, select all the objects and press U to unwrap. Now you can, I'm not going through of course I can actually just mark the symbol. If you unwrap, it's just look for the default way to unwrap by itself, alright, okay? And oftentimes it's not always a bad idea. You can use light map. Let me just unwrap light map or smart TV project. Let me just use light map. Any of the options, they do the same thing actually, just don't worry about that. So you click OK. And if you go into texture paint, no, go to UV editing, you see all the unwrapping, you see the surface. So if you select this surface now, that's the face here, that's the corresponding face here. Select this face, that's the corresponding face here. Select this face, select all the face. You understand? You see how it's been unwrapped. So if you select everything, it's kind of like just broke all the faces apart and then turns them into a flat surface. I think that's how to add textures. Okay, so um, what we want to do is we want to add texture paint to it. Okay, so now we come into the texture paint tab here, texture paint layout. Okay, so by default there's no texture on it. There's not really any texture on it. Okay, so what we're going to do is going to add a new texture to it. Now, so we'll click first of all, we'll click this. Okay, so let's first of all we'll come into this texture properties. Okay, let's click this texture properties. And I'm going to add a new texture. Okay, I'm going to add a new texture. I'm going to say single image or movie. So if you wanted to, we're trying to create a slap a label on this. So what you're going to do is you're going to since we've provided a new texture, so we're going to open a new image, the image I want to add as a texture on the cube. Okay, this is going to start something. Please explain. Help me so I can explain. So I'm just going to go to my system quickly and pick a random image. All right, don't worry about the images. It's just for reference. Okay, so let's say I don't know. Okay, let me just do this one. Okay, so now I have an image texture, right? Now I have an image texture here, right? So now we come back into this. Notice where I click to get this the option for the texture paint. Okay. So what you do is you add a new texture for itself, right? So you click this plus icon, and because the object is like it's going to be like on the surface, So we're going to click base color because it's going to we're painting on the base color of the object itself. So click base color, and you can just adjust the size of the image just here. Maybe, I don't know, whichever size you want. I think 1024 by 1024 is okay for me. So I'm just going to click OK, and then by default that's added now. Okay. All right. So what we're going to do now, we're going to scroll down. We're going to scroll down into texture. Yeah. Let's scroll down into texture. And this mapping now, we're going to click stencil. All right. Stencil. Please follow, remember these steps and please follow along. If you don't understand something, if you don't understand, or if you might need to go over this, don't worry, the video, of course, we made available on the YouTube page, so you can still go over it again to understand what I'm doing. So you click stencil, right? And when you click stencil, it's as if whenever you bring your mouse back into this the viewport, the image that you added will be appearing here. So let me just if you to move it around, just right click to right click around here, and to scale it, you just um, sorry, just you hold shift and right click to reduce the size of the image. Okay, please bear in mind what I did again. You hold shift and right click on the object to scale it in and out to make the object bigger or to make it smaller. Okay. Now, of course, the navigation key still working. So if you press one to go to front view, and five to make it photographic, you can still try to orbit around. Notice that when you are orbiting, or when you are orbiting, the image will slightly will temporarily disappear. Just it's not a big deal. Okay? Once you click it, the image will come back. Okay, so let's say I come here now. For example, I bring this here, and what I want is I want to whenever I paint, it's like just exactly like painting. So whenever you paint this image, it's going to project on the actual of your object. Okay, so what I can now do is if I now paint, if I just click paint, notice that it's kind of like painting it over. All right. So now if I come around, notice that I've projected the image on that particular face rather than just having to look for the like rather than having to seek that particular face, they now go and look for what they call it. You now go and look for you now go into the shading, you apply, you assign that material to that particular face, you might do the tracking. So this way is a little bit more easier. It's a little bit easier. You can actually you have the flexibility to do anything you want to do. You can just come here, I don't know, and it works based on projection. So if I paint this now, because it's as if it's slap, yeah, of course it will be stretched out and work based on projection. And this is very powerful. If you want a different image now, just all you have to do is go into the texture. Yeah, go into your texture, and then you come here, you click on this file to open image. I can add image any detail. You navigate on your system to wherever image you want to add. So this image I want to add now. So I can just print this new image here. Okay, and like just like that, it has been added. All right. Okay, and it's just as simple as that. So it's all about based on projection. You can come here, um, and the image is what will work relative to the what they call it, relative to the view, or it's kind of like projecting the image onto the cube or onto your object. All right. Do you understand what I'm doing? Hello. All right. Okay. Good. Okay. Good. So that's just the basics of how to texture paint. Okay, how to paint with texture or that texture onto an object. Okay, and before you leave this page, it's very important. Just come over here to make sure you save your image. Okay, so just click on this image. Okay, and save all images. All right, and save all images. Click on image and save and yeah, you saved all the images. So you can now come into your layout, for example, and you see that you remember we're in the material view, that's why you can see all the materials that have been added to it. And even if you click that, it will show you all the materials that I've added to it. So that's just the basis of texture painting, all right? So there are other there are all more sophisticated techniques in texture painting. Materials is like a whole world. There are different ways, more sophisticated ways, but I just decided I wanted to show you only this one because this one with just this you can actually do most of or anything you want. Any you can actually do most of the things you actually come across. The other techniques are a lot more. Some of them are more advanced. But I don't want to confuse you guys, so let's just work with this for now. And this is actually enough. So of course, so that's it. All right. So luckily today you won't be having any assignments, so you can focus on the assignments I've been giving you in the past. Focus on that. I've finished all the assignments. You can still do that tomorrow. You won't be having assignments tomorrow too. But on Sunday, the assignment is going to be succeeded. So all this 2 day break is kind of building up onto Sunday, okay? So Sunday you'll be having a much larger assignment that will cover all the things you've done from from tomorrow's class all the way to the beginning of the project, okay? So please have that back of your mind. So before we round up today, do we have any questions of everything I've done so far? Please ask questions now. Hello, Stefan.
No question.
Sean. Okay, no question, right? So you understand. You'll be able to add in a texture or you add in a texture paint and unwrap materials, unwrap objects on your own, right?
Yeah, I learned that in the last class too.
Sorry.
I said I got that as well in the last class.
All right, excellent, excellent. So please and please, I would like to encourage you guys if try apart from what we do in the class alone, to once at your own time, try to practice or try to look for just random things, model random things and add texture. Okay, look at this. Oh, this is a charger. I want to try and model this charger. So you look for this label. If you have the image of this label, make sure it's transparent. Or even if not, you can have this image of label, add the image, then try to paint the image on in texture painting to paint this label onto it, and then you model everything, model your charger, model the implications of everything, and then you texture it. Try to do that on your own. It's not about practice, okay? So once you practice, you'll be more comfortable in texturing and come across different ideas. And of course, I'll be here to I'm here so you can actually ask me for if you have any problem, ask me to push it through. I will be glad to do that. And so the more you practice, the more you're flexible, and the more you will have no issue when it comes to more complicated things and more complicated subjects. All right. So with that being said, that will be the end of today's class. And like I said, there's no assignment for today, so focus on the previous assignments, finish them up, and then on Sunday I'll give you the assignment that will cover everything. All right. So I don't know if Masuchi has any information for roundup.
All right. Thank you for the section. It's been wonderful so far. And for those who showed up, thank you for putting up this far. I appreciate the number has been